So I come from quite an interesting background. You'll hear from my accent, I'm South African. I hail from Cape Town. So I was born into a family with a pretty worldly and slightly passionate and fiery Argentinian father, and a fairly traditional and conservative South African mother. And part of my upbringing, which led me to what I've done today, has been quite interesting. When I was a young person, I'm still a young person, but when I was a teenager, I like to think so. When I was a teenager, when most of the guys and girls were going out and discovering what girls were and what girls were discovering what boys were, I was more that geeky kid that would be behind the school, perving over a guitar magazine and an amplifier, going, yes, this is exactly what I want in my life. This is amazing. On the other hand, I also found myself very much drawn into quite a unique kind of clique, really, of other young people, and we were surrounded by a lot of Eastern philosophies. So I used to go and I used to attend with a lot of other young people from the age of 13 up until my early 20s. We used to go and attend groups where we talk about truth and what is love and wisdom, and we used to meditate and have a lot of existential conversations. And a lot of this has shaped my outlook on life. During this time when I was between the ages of 16 and 20, I was helping out in a township, which is a very, very poor community in the outskirts of Cape Town, which I can tell you for a white teenage boy in the 90s was something which generally people didn't really do. I think having a fairly liberal Eastern philosophy kind of background, my parents were like, hey, that's fine, you know, go learn about people. And we would spend almost every Sunday out in this township working with young kids from the age of 13 and 14 years old, teaching them life skills, kids that didn't have shoes on, kids that many of them were AIDS orphans, which had quite a strong impact on my life. This then led me up to a particular junction when I was 17. I remember sitting in a philosophy group with my peers, and there was a leader who was quite a prominent philosopher who'd come down, and we were all sitting in a group, there were 8 of us, and he said, what do you guys love? I want to know what you love in life. I want to know what you want to do. Tell me a bit about that. And I, being quite a stroppy teenager, said very confidently, I'm going to be a tycoon. It's exactly what I'm going to be. And there was obviously a bit of laughing, so it was not too. And our heart's head said that what I was going to do was, the road to being a tycoon was quite simple. You become an accountant, because, well, accountants, they know what they're doing with business. It's quite hard to be an accountant, but it is pretty boring. And I was going to become an accountant, even though accountancy was my worst grade at school. And I was, after that, I was then going to work my way up in the company, and then I was going to be very disruptive, and I was going to change everything. And fair enough, I finished school, and I went on to study accountancy. But my life had taken an interesting turn. I was this young person who was very passionate about volunteerism, who was very passionate about breaking down boundaries between people. When I was 14 years old, the South African Constitution was written. And it was the first time there was a free constitution and an equal constitution where people had equal rights and equality. And every single young person at school was given a book of the Constitution. And Nelson Mandela was the hero of my decade. And as you all know, when you're a teenager, you're much more sensitive towards emotion and to thought. And in those years, those developmental years, seeing a man of Nelson Mandela's stature stand before the nation and preach reconciliation and peace and no conflict was an incredibly impressionable time for me. And this had all influenced me to not really wanting to just be an accountant and sit in a university commerce faculty and just study books in the grade that I was particularly bad at. So I spent a couple of years studying accountancy whilst doing a lot of volunteer work. And at this time, I was also fortunate enough to receive a scholarship to travel to Italy and to study a bit further in transformational leadership. This is working with young people to make a difference, helping communities, young people, 20s and 30s, to make a difference in their communities. And so I worked with these people, and I came back, and in 2006 I co-founded an organization that did this and trained several thousand people. I was then fortunate enough to have the opportunity to be introduced to Nobel Peace Prize winner Desmond Tutu. And I began developing a particular part of a leadership program for Mr. Tutu called the Emerging Leadership Program. And I did that and worked part-time in that for several years before moving on into a business development space and worked with companies and small businesses to help them improve their bottom line. And I'm not going to bore you with a lot of other click words, but pretty much we helped businesses do well, and at the same time a lot of my life was moving out of the accountancy, out of the university sphere, into trying to find an amalgamation of what was right for me. This then took me on to another very eventful time of my life, which was in 2009. There was an outbreak of xenophobia in South Africa. Now, xenophobia is the fear of foreigners. So thankfully I can stand here today and not be pelted at with tomatoes, or maybe at the end of this talk. I hope that won't happen. But xenophobia took a very difficult turn in South Africa. There was suddenly overnight in winter, there were a lot of people fleeing their homes, and there was a lot of murdering and violence going on. And a couple of us, social media had just began to start, or just really started taking off properly in South Africa. And a couple of us started up a little Facebook group called Soup and Sandwiches. And we set up a little makeshift camp under a bridge, and we started feeding a whole bunch of refugees that couldn't go home. And the amount of love that came, the amount of help and support that came, we had medical services there. We had a really nice big collaboration happening. We had this one advocacy group from the Treatment Action Campaign coming along, and we had this medical unit from the university offering clinic services. And then we had a whole bunch of people making sleeping bags from these nearby schools, and we had the press, and we had to collaborate with the police to make sure it was safe. It was quite fun, quite exciting. My life then moved on, and I was really interested in taking a break from all of this. And I've always been interested in the area of justice and what's going on in Israel, and what is the truth of my own eyes without wearing really like a visor, by having coloured glasses, tinted sunglasses, to actually make up an own opinion of peace, and wasn't possible. So I spent a year out there on both sides of the border, making up my own mind. And the plan was do that, go to the UK, get some more experience in business development, social development, and and then go from there and build up just a stronger resume, really, see where my life takes me. So I came through to the UK, and I got very much involved in a program called the National Citizen Service, which is the world's most advanced governmental youth initiative. So currently, there are 100,000 16-year-olds that have access, fully paid for by the UK government, to go and learn about themselves, learn skills, and to take social action. They learn business skills, they learn a lot of skills that equip them for life and employment. I then also moved on to a period where I managed briefly an international development program in over 80 countries. And I sat down and I thought, well, this is all great, but I think it's time that take all this knowledge that's been bubbling up around me in my life, and it's time for me to do my own thing. And thus the big collaboration was born. So the big collaboration is a social enterprise. And for those of you who don't know what a social enterprise is, it's different from a charity, but it's not really a company. So a social enterprise is a business that's for profit, but it has a social aim. Unlike a charity also has a social aim. However, Charities don't refer to it as profits. If there's extra income they make, they call it as surpluses. We call it as profits. And a charity fundamentally makes their money from grants and fundraising and foundational money, whereas a social enterprise makes its money through trade, products and services. So what we do at the Big Collaboration is we create a whole host of different innovative collaborations between governments, between charities, between communities, and between corporates. And we find out, well, what do governments want to do? Well, governments want to make sure that they can deliver and they can do what their policies are about efficiently and that they can benefit most people. What do corporates want to do? Well, corporates want to try and gain competitive advantage. They want to grow their market share. They want to be innovative. What do charities want to do? Well, charities want to go out and they want to address needs that they see out there in the world, and they've got the right tools, the resources, and the knowledge behind how to do that properly and sustainably. And then what about communities? Well, communities everywhere around the world, every little community has got its own leadership, it's got its own culture, it's got its own context. People need to be empowered from where they're at, so where they're coming from. So at the Big Collaboration, we create innovative projects where we marry all of these. So I'll give you an example. In South Africa, we've got a project which we're starting off, and I'm off at the end of this month through to Nairobi in Kenya and South Africa for a month, just to solidify agreements, because this year is a year about planning for us. And what we're doing is, there's a big need in South Africa where a huge amount of rural people in poverty do not have sufficient access to good quality education, where they have possibility to develop their financial literacy to a high enough level that can ensure they understand how it is to save money, how it is to start up their own business, what it is to have confidence to break down these barriers between gender inequality. There's a lot of problems in the rural communities. There's a lack of school equipment, computers, internet. They say that 37% of rural South Africans, they don't have access to rural banking. They have their own little system of doing things. They also say that 80% of South Africans, by the year 2020 will come along, will have smartphones, which is quite interesting. You don't have school computers, but you've got a smartphone. So this is the way the trend is, this is the way things are moving. So what we're doing is we've developed a collaboration with the Department of Education in South Africa. We developed technology in collaboration with MIT. Technology is developed in MIT University and put out in Afghanistan and in Kenya. We put up a device and it'll take one internet signal from say a school and bounce it out 10 kilometers. So everyone can have access to this internet. Quite disruptive really, it's quite innovative. So we're taking then school computer labs made out of a shipping container, we're equipping them with solar powered computers. We then getting all these different banks to collaborate to have a different province per country. And we're getting them to compete against each other to help these schools generate income by starting up an internet cafe business, whilst developing enterprise skills, growing financial literacy and growing the financial market for these businesses too. And that's what the Big Collaboration is about. It's about creating innovation. Now on my way here this morning, I woke up at 6:30 and I was pretty anxious. I thought, wow, it's a pretty big deal to come stand up in front of a whole lot of people and give a talk. And TED is about ideas that are worth spreading, so what idea do I have that's worth spreading? My mind was ticking by and I was getting nervous. Oh, what's this about? I don't want to disappoint anyone, I don't want to disappoint myself, am I going to fail? And on top of this, the cat then scratched me because I was like, oh, I'm off to a bad start. So I got into the train, first train, and I sat down there and I thought, you know what, my mind's traveling at 100 miles an hour, and my heart is sort of like, when you're driving in a car and you've got that little indicator, that light which is just blinking, and it's saying, you need to pull over, the car's about to explode, or something like that. And I thought, well, I need to actually just I need to pull over. I need to get into a nice parking bay. I need to pull over. I need to turn off the engine. I need to just sit for a minute. That's exactly what I did. I just sat there. And I just sat there in the train. And I just became present. And I just connected with the moments to moment, and I just was. I just kept the present moment. As I opened my eyes, there was a man blowing his nose into his glove. I thought to myself, well, actually, ordinarily, I'd look at something like this and I'd go, it's pretty, no, that's not a good idea, man. You gotta put it back in your pocket. And actually what happened was, I saw my mind thinking this. I saw myself putting this value judgment on him. I saw this whole interaction going on, and I thought, well, that's actually why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's the biggest challenge that we have when we're building collaborations with people, is what we're trying to do is we're trying to take people and we say, we're a human being, we get anxious, we get nervous, we put value judgments on people all the time, moments to moments to moments to moments, every day of our lives. And the message that I'm trying to spread, that I'd love to share with all of you, is that when we stop doing that, but we be gentle on ourselves and we allow ourselves to acknowledge that this is the way we react, then we can meet people where they are. And then we can go forward and we can begin conversations and we can begin to talk. And companies can begin to consider, maybe we can actually talk to each other. Maybe working with competitors for a greater aim is something that we can do together. And there's an old African proverb that goes, if you want to go slow, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that together we are much stronger. And together, if we can find that source, if we can find that moment where we can just stop, where we can turn the engine off, and we can find that connection that can connect me to you, to someone else, and we can put things aside for a moment, then we have great hope that together we can achieve much more. Thank you very much.